Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Lee Routman. I'm the Executive Director of the Holocaust Learning Experience. We are here to share with you our resources. There's no charge to use these resources in any district across the country. So what we're going to be doing is going through what the program is so you can learn a little bit about it and then decide if you want to bring it into your district. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of the program. We started back in 2022. We started with piloting the program in the 23-24 school year in 5 districts in Florida. Florida is set up a little bit differently than most other states. Florida only has 67 school districts. Every county is a school district in the state of Florida. So we have some gigantic school districts and some really small rural districts, but every district counts the same, and there's 67 of them. So we piloted our program back in the 23 school year with 5 of our districts. And during that same school year is when the state of Florida put out their standards and benchmarks for their Holocaust mandate. There are 26 states that have a Holocaust mandate. If your state doesn't have a Holocaust mandate, it sure is woven through your social studies curriculum as something that's mandatory for you to teach. So because Florida rolled out these standards and benchmarks, about 30 standards and 100 benchmarks, we aligned our program specifically to that. So it makes it a really easy crosswalk for us to get into any other state, because most states, the mandate says you must teach about genocide and Holocaust studies, and it doesn't really go as deep as Florida's mandate did. So our overarching goal is not teaching the history of the Holocaust. Our overarching goal is educating students on the importance of mitigating the language of hate, bigotry, bias, and prejudice. And we do that through the lens of history, through the lens of the Holocaust. So we're not here teaching the Holocaust as a Holocaust elective studies class might do. We are teaching lessons from, which makes it a really easy program to weave into any curriculum, across curriculum, and teachers are using it interdisciplinary. And we can get a little bit more into that later on. But I'd like to share that the state of Florida awarded us $2 million back in the 23-24 school year to help us continue to create the lessons. We have over 40 lessons in our catalog from 5th grade through 12th grade, and roll it out through the state of Florida. And this past summer, they gave us another $1 million. We've received $3 million from the state of Florida to roll this out. And we are now in about 45 of the 67 school districts across the state of Florida. And we're just continuing to grow. So that's a little bit of our history, how we started, where we started, and how we've grown exponentially very quickly. This next slide is one of our school board members. She is one of our original adopters of the program. She's down in Charlotte County, Florida, which is in Southwest Florida. I want to say that they're about a large school district, about 100,000 students in their school district, and we probably trained over 100 teachers in their district on our program. But she was one of the first people who said, yes, I want to bring this in, and she was kind enough to give us a testimony on why.
I thought that it was important to bring the Holocaust Learning Experience to our school district, because what I really enjoyed about the lessons is how they give our teachers everything they need to teach a very important part of our world history. It gave them what they needed so that they can engage with our students in that high-level academic discussion, and did it in a way where they would feel comfortable having those difficult conversations with students. I also appreciate how the survivors connect what happened to them during the Holocaust with lessons that our students need to know today about empathy, which is more important than ever in the world that we live in.
So this next slide you'll see are some of our state partners. I'm going to share a little bit about our growth since the 23-24 school year. That first year when we piloted the program, we had about 250 teachers in our learning management system. This past year, in May, we had 630 teachers enrolled in our program. And now, as of today, we have over 1,200 teachers in the system. So we started with those 5 districts in Florida, grew it to 45 districts in Florida, and now we're in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arkansas, New York, Arizona, New Jersey, Texas, Florida, and then Guam. We have a charter school in Guam who's now using our program because it's such an easy, deployable, and deliverable program. If your district has Wi-Fi, you can implement it. And I can share with you that since I was at NFAR, We're going to be adding in districts, rural districts from Utah and Nebraska have both reached out, and I'm working with them on bringing the program to their rural districts as well. So we can go to the next slide. This is, I've met, well, I met Haley in Arizona, but I met a few of you at NFAR, and that's what we do. We go around and we're going into these national conferences and we're meeting people. We've been at COSBA. This will be our third year at COSBA. We're going back to the Superintendent's Association. We're at the National Council on Social Studies every year. We'll be at the National Social Studies Leaders Association. So we grow very organically. We grow through coming to these conferences and meeting people like Haley and like you all, where you see what we're doing, you learn what we're doing, you want to bring it into your districts. And that's how we grow. And we also grow by word of mouth. So we snowball. Once we're in a district, the districts talk to one another. Then we start to grow within the state. And that's what's happening right now in Pennsylvania and Georgia as well. We continue to grow and add on more districts in Texas. Almost every day, we're adding in more. So this is what the platform holds. I'm going to go through this, and then when we're done on the slide deck, we'll go into the learning management system so you can see how. So this is the what we deploy, and then you'll see how we deploy it when we go into the LMS. So the first part, so I'm going to explain that every school district that works with us, or charter school or private school, the way it works is we do a presentation. They say, yes, we want to use it. Um, we then send you the enrollment keys, and then it's up to the district to deploy the enrollment keys to the teachers that want to be engaged in the system. Again, it's 5th grade through 12th grade. Right now, this program is being used in language arts, social studies, world history, geography. We have a middle school math lesson on how much is 6 million. We have an economics lesson on corporate complicity during the Holocaust. We have a lesson on athletes from the Holocaust. It talks about the 1936 Olympics. So PE teachers are using it. So it really can be dropped into any course at any time during the year. And the overarching goal, again, is that character development, but it's to weave these lessons through a child's education from 5th grade through 12th grade. I don't have any expectation of any teacher showing 40 lessons, but if throughout the course of a student's lifetime in a school district, they're exposed to 2 or 3 of these lessons every year, maybe that those lessons will really start to sink in. And we do have some data that shows how that's going so far. But each course is listed the same way in the learning management system. It starts with that teacher's resource guide. That is the tool that every one of our 40 lessons has a unique one of. In these resource guides, there is vocabulary, there's critical thinking, there's discussion questions, there's links to additional resources. What we've done here is we've curated all of the scholarly information from all of those sources that teachers are usually told to go and find things from, right? So teacher needs to teach something about Holocaust. They're told, go to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, go to Yad Vashem, Echoes and Reflections, Facing History, and pull something together. So what we've done is we have pulled that all together for teachers and wrapped it in a nice neat bow and given it to them in a nice neat package. So our curriculum instruction, our curriculum specialist is a retired educator from Broward County, Florida, which is the 6th largest school district in the country. She taught Holocaust education for over 20 years in Broward County, won awards for her Holocaust education, and has her master's degree in curriculum development. She's the person who wrote the lessons and aligned them to the standards and benchmarks for the state of Florida. So teacher gets that teacher's resource guide. It's downloadable. They can print it. There's a knowledge-based assessment in there. There's a lot of information. There's poetry in there for them to share with their students. There's a lot going on in that resource guide. Then once they're done with that, the next click, there's 4 clicks in each lesson, super easy. The next click is the mini documentary, multimedia mini documentary pre-recorded lesson from the Holocaust. So basically what we've done is we've hired a production team who took Leslie's words and made it into a movie. A lot of historical footage, a lot of primary sources. If you walked by our booth, you probably saw some of it playing when we were at the conferences. There's a lot happening on the screen because we know students today learn very differently than we did or than I did. There's music, there's movement. what's being said and talked about might not be what's exactly shown on the screen. So there's a lot of things happening. Every one of our lessons is right now closed captioned in 5 languages because we really are trying to be as inclusive as possible. So right now we have it in English for students who might be hearing impaired, Spanish, French, Spanish, Creole, Portuguese, and Russian. And we have the ability of adding in additional languages if we need to. And then each one of these pre-recorded lessons is coupled with a survivor testimony. So these are survivors that we've been working with down here in South Florida for years. If you're not aware, South Florida has the 3rd largest population of Holocaust survivors in the world. Only after Israel and New York, it's Southeast Florida. And my background, just so you know, is in social work, and I've been working with Holocaust survivors for a very long time. And they all know that they're a part of this program. They've all been interviewed for this program. And what we do is we align their lesson, their story to the lesson at hand. So if the lesson is on heroes of the Holocaust, you're going to hear a survivor talking about the heroes that saved him and what that made him feel like. Both the lesson and the survivor testimony are made to fit in one class period. So there's no coupling of a survivor testimonial lesson that's longer than 40 minutes. So a teacher can play the entire lesson in one class period if they wanted to. But the really interesting thing for us is that what we're hearing from teachers is that's not what they're doing. They're hitting pause and they're processing with their students. So they're able to hit pause at any time during the survivor testimony, anytime during the lesson, and really talk to their students about what they're hearing and what they're seeing. And it's really been incredibly well received. Teachers are telling us that this program is a gift, that they've been struggling for a long time on what to pull together and how to pull it together. And now we've just kind of handed it to them, and they're very, very excited about it. The next part of our platform is data. So we're a data-driven agency. We want to know that we're making a difference. We know that we can't collect any identifying data, so there's no identifying data given in these surveys. But at the end of every lesson, there's a QR code or a link, and we'll show that to you in the system that will bring the students to a survey. It's a look back before this lesson. Did you know? After this lesson, how do you feel? And again, no identifying data. So if you were to call me and say, hey, Lee, can you tell me how many students from my school district participated in your survey? I wouldn't be able to. It's done in aggregate, and we don't ask those quantifiers. And then once a year, we ask teachers for we want to know what teachers want. And that's how we added those languages in there. That's how we added the closed captioning in there. Last year, not this year, but the year before, teachers asked us for a knowledge-based assessment. They loved the fact that we were collecting the survey data, but they wanted to give their students something. So we added knowledge-based assessment into every lesson. And then the last thing that we do is the professional orientation. So what we do with every district that wants to work with us is we offer you an on-demand teacher orientation. So you can gather as many teachers as you want. And we will get on a Zoom and show them how to use the program. And we have multiple iterations of how we're doing this now, so I can show that to you once we're in the learning management system. But that is an overview of what the program is. And we're going to get into the how in a few minutes. But I think the next slide is the student outcome. So this is what we've received. We've received thousands of student surveys already, thousands and thousands, which is really amazing because it's optional. And if you're a district that does not want your teachers using surveys, you can opt out of them, but you just don't need to send them to the students. But you can see the types of outcomes that we're getting, which is phenomenal. And my favorite one is the last one where it says 84% of students are more willing to speak up and be upstanders rather than be an observer and a bystander. Because that's that piece, teenagers don't want to, stand up to other people. But here they're saying that after they're participating, that they're more likely to understand the importance of that. So these are the empathy pieces and the character development. That's what we're measuring in this program. So this next slide is a brief video. It's about 2 minutes long. You're going to hear from a couple of Holocaust survivors, some teachers, and some students in their own words about how they feel impacted by the program.
I recognize the fact that in a number of years, very short time, there will be no survivors left to tell their stories.
That's the reason why I'm here. I'm nothing special, but I have a job. I have to tell them. I have to make sure they will remember.
Good morning, everyone. So today's lesson is from the Holocaust Learning Experience.
There's a lot of hate in the world today, and I hope we can move past those problems and create a better world for not just me in the present, but for people in the future.
One of the best ways to teach is to take, the more crunchy kind of data and make it personal. They might not necessarily remember what the Reichstag is, but I bet that they will remember Laszlo's story.
Not only does it teach the history, but it's trying to teach empathy. It's trying to show the kids that no matter anyone's beliefs or religions, we are still one. And trying to show love instead of hatred, trying to bring people together, trying to be an upstander.
Learning about the Holocaust has definitely raised awareness for me about the propaganda.
What I personally learned is that if there's a problem and it's a small problem, try and tackle it before it gets bigger.
Hearing the people talk about it who survived has really had an impact on my way of thinking about how others go through things and perceive things.
And when they start connecting their Holocaust learning to the current events and the issues that they're seeing today, that's the meaningfulness of it.
So what we're going to do now that we showed you the what, we're going to show you the how. So we're going to go ahead and go into the learning management system. But while we flip over, does anybody have any questions so far? Or we can save the questions to the end.
Haley, I actually do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. I just made some quick notes and I think pertinent to the discussion you started with. So I am curious, have you found that there's a sweet spot? You meant that this is set up for grades 5 through 12. Have you guys found a sweet spot where the curriculum seems to really hit home or where educators or schools say, man, we use this in X and it is our best time? Or have you found that at all?
That's a great question. And I'm going to share with you that we just received, I don't know, another 1,000 surveys, and they really run the gamut. But it seems as though, at least from what I'm noticing, is that 6th to 8th grade is really flourishing. And then again, and then 9, 12. So not as much in the 5th and 6th grade, but 6, 8, 9, 12 is where the biggest amount of lessons are being used.
Yeah, and then lastly, I'm curious. I've done some work with the project that's in Tennessee at Whitewell. It's called the Paperclip Project. And I'm curious as to the expansion of this program in this context. So obviously, developed in Florida, used in Florida schools, has a lot of information from folks in Florida. But as the potential grows, is there an ability to add state-specific stories? So, videos from Tennessee, if I'm a Tennessee educator, videos from Illinois. I know that our governor has a very strong tie to the Holocaust and the National Museum and some of those. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that in terms of connecting state to state.
Right. So what we usually tell states is that if your state has resources that you want to add to this, feel free. But I don't think we would have the production capacity. And once you see the productions, you'll understand what I'm talking about. To add, we would have to send our production team state to state to state. So the Paperclips is amazing. The museums are incredible. We like to consider ourselves a yes and. If you have local resources that you want to take your students to go and see or experience, absolutely you should do that. Those are one-off experiences. This program is not a one-off. It lives in the classroom and it can live in the classroom continuously, however teachers want to bring it in there. But I don't think we're going to have the capacity to go into all 50 states and interview survivors and add their stories. As much as I would love to, and we do have some people from, listen, none of them are from Florida, obviously. Um, we have survivors that lived in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and they're just down here now. And
Right.
we do have another survivor who we interviewed who is from um, Baltimore. So none of them are from Florida, I guess is
Right.
my point.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I don't think anybody really is from Florida. They all
Yeah,
came there from somewhere else, no matter what. But all right.
exactly,
Well, hey,
exactly.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for indulging those questions. I
Of
appreciate it.
course, my pleasure. So what you see on the screen now is our learning management system. And the way it works is every teacher would have their own unique sign on, username and password. And then once they're in the system, it's theirs to use. And everything looks exactly the same. So we're just going to show you some of the key components so you can understand how it flows. So this is the how we do it. The first thing I always like to point out is we have a big contact us button. So if you have a question, you can ask us anything and someone from the team will respond to the teacher directly. The next part we're going to look at is the pacing guides in the resources department. This is a tab that we continue to add things to. So we have a 3-minute video and a PDF on how to use the system. So if you receive the enrollment key, but you don't want to wait for a teacher orientation and you want to just get a quick how to use this, you can watch this 3-minute video or you can download the PDF and it'll take you step by step on how to go through the system. We have pacing guides in here. So again, we're not teaching the history of the Holocaust. So our lessons are not chronological. Our lessons in the system are alphabetical. So we did have a couple of teachers give us some survey outcomes saying, if we wanted to do more chronological work, what would we use first? How would you pace it out? So we paced it out for teachers. So if they wanted to do a little bit more chronologically, start somewhere, this is where they could start. And we have them for the different grade departments in there. We have a historical timeline in there because again, this is a program that is not necessary. It's not for a Holocaust elective where the teacher has been trained on how to teach the Holocaust while they can use it. This is for any and every teacher. So some teachers said to us, what, I really don't know the history that well of the Holocaust. Can you give us something to go by? So we added a historical timeline. And then my new favorite department is examples of bringing the learning management system to life in your classroom. Teachers from around the country are sharing with us what they're doing with the program instead of just watching the lessons, right? How are they implementing it with their students? What kind of impact are they having with their students? And they're sharing that with us. And we're going to be putting them in here for teachers from around the country to look and see what other teachers are doing in the classroom with their students. So again, we're trying to give teachers everything that they want right here in this platform. So now we're going to go ahead into the catalog, which is where the lessons live. Now you're seeing the back end because David is one of our administrators. But the way it works is when you're a teacher or an administrator in the system, you can only be in one department. And that is our fail-safe way of making sure a 5th and 6th grade teacher is not viewing a 9th through 12th grade course because you can imagine the lessons are vastly different. So every teacher would only have access to one department, and that depends upon the grades that you teach. Now, I will share that we do have some 5th and 6th grade teachers that say, you know what, I'm in the 5th and 6th grade department, but I really want to be in the 6th and 8th grade department. And my answer to that is that's up to you guys. You know your students better than anybody else. And if your district says yes, go for it, and you can have the key. It's district by district. They can decide where the teachers need to be. But every one of these departments is set up exactly the same way. And you can see that 9th through 12th grade, we have 33 lessons, and 6 to 8, we have 8, and 5, 6, we have 4, because obviously the standards and benchmarks get higher and higher as you get older and older and through high school. So we're going to go ahead and just look in the 9th through 12th grade so you can see how the departments are set up. Again, it starts with the how to use the learning management system video, which is 3 minutes in length. So again, trying to make it as easy for teachers to use the program. Oh my gosh, I had my teacher training 6 months ago, but I want to use this for Holocaust Remembrance Day and it's January. How do I do it? There's a video in there. We also provide ongoing teacher trainings, and we send those emails out through our learning management system. In fact, we have 2 this week, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday. So we're constantly trying to come up with ways to give teachers what they need so they can refresh on how to use the system. So you can see they're alphabetical, the name of the title, Bias and Prejudice, the teacher would enroll in the class and they would hit start on the class. The standards and benchmarks are listed there for the state of Florida. Those are the learning objectives. You'll see them in the teacher's resource guide for everywhere else. And then there's a little blurb about the lesson of what it is. And then they're all set up exactly the same way. So we're going to go ahead and go into, let's go into Heroes of the Holocaust. So once the teacher goes in, the very first time they're going into any one of the lessons, we're going to ask them, how many students do you plan on showing this lesson to for the year? So they only have to do this once, and that's just more data for us. So we know how many students are being impacted by the lesson. So every time they enroll a new lesson, that's what they're going to do. And then they're going to tell us what they teach. Again, that's just some data points that we're trying to collect because we want to see where it's being used the most. And then the next is the teacher's resource guide. So you can see here at the top, there are the standards and benchmarks. So for the state of Florida, the standards and benchmarks. For everywhere else, they are the learning objectives of this lesson. And every single one of these lessons has a unique teacher's resource guide in it. So Leslie did an amazing job. So there's vocabulary. After the learning objectives is the vocabulary for the lesson. Then you'll see there's links. And when we do a teacher orientation, we click on those links so teachers can see where else they can go within this program. There's facing history. There's a lot of activities. There's critical thinking in here. And then towards the bottom, there's poetry. So every one of these lessons has poetry in it. So language arts teachers are loving that for poetry dissection. And then at the very bottom is that knowledge-based assessment. So this entire teacher's resource guide is downloadable and printable, and the teachers can have it in their hands. We give them all of the information for the knowledge-based assessment, including all the answers in case they don't know them. So everything is there for them. Once they've downloaded the teacher's resource guide, step 2 is the pre-recorded multimedia mini documentary. We're not going to play it here because I'm going to show you a 5-minute montage instead. But once that's done, the next step is the survivor testimony. And again, these are both made to fit in one class period if the teachers want it to. But what they're doing is they're hitting pause and they're having those conversations with their students. So you can see it's 4 easy steps. Once they're in the system, it's super easy to use. Step 4 is that student survey where you saw the outcomes. It pops up as a QR code. If teachers are not allowing students to have their phones, then there's a link that teachers can email their students. So the students can do the data, the survey if they want to. It's completely, it's not mandatory. They can do it. They don't have to do it. It's completely up to them. We ask that they do it because we like to get the data, but we understand that these are teenagers and they're not all going to do it. And then the last piece that we added in here was a teacher certificate. So if your school district is holding teachers accountable to teaching to the standards and benchmarks or the mandate or whatever your state has, the teacher can print out the teacher's resource guide and the certificate of completion and turn it in as an accountability piece to show that they've taught about genocide and the Holocaust. So that's the program. What I'd like to do now is show you a 5-minute montage, which will give you a little bit of a feel for what a lesson looks like and what a survivor testimony looks like. It's kind of mashed together so you get an idea, and then we can open up the floor for questions.
Thank you for joining us for our presentations on Heroes of the Holocaust. Despite incredible danger, many ordinary people refused to be bystanders while millions of innocent people were being murdered for their religious beliefs. The Nazis implemented a massive propaganda campaign to convince the German people to go along with their plans. A small but important number of people chose to be upstanders. The Holocaust was a genocide, an internationally recognized crime where acts are committed with the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Anti-Semitism, racism, and prejudice were taught every day in school and promoted in the newspaper and radio programs.
When a child reached the age of 5, they had to wear a star. My mother and I were picked up by the Gestapo And I was separated from my mother. I was very frightened and didn't know what was going on.
We all have a universe of obligation, the circle of individuals we feel a responsibility to care for and protect. Who are the people in your universe of obligation? Individuals or groups who fall outside a nation's universe of obligation become emotionally and physically vulnerable. Who decides who is us and who is them? The Nazis decided to make the Jews the scapegoat for all of Germany's problems. Most people's attitudes towards the Jews during the Holocaust ranged from apathy to hatred, and they did not believe the Jews were in their universe of obligation. Today's presentation is about those individuals who believe their universe of obligation extended to more than just their close friends and family. These people are called the righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem, Israel's official memorial to Holocaust victims, and they are a very diverse group. They all believed that the Jews belonged to their universe of obligation, and they were willing to pay a dear price for this commitment.
In 1941, my grandmother was picked up by the Nazis, and they took her to a place called the Holländische Schambrouw. Now, the Holländische Schambrouw was a large movie theater where they knocked out all of the seats, and all of the Dutch Jews were congregated there before they were sent to a concentration camp. And my mom became quite frightened, recognizing that if they picked us up once, they could pick us up again. And consequently, she became very friendly with a woman called Toos van Steen. And Toos was a member of the Dutch Underground, and they became good friends. And Toos said to my mom, if ever you need help with your child, I will be happy to help you. I know some people who might be able to help. She never told my mom who they were. Later, after the war, we found out that they were her own mother and father who took me in. They had 4 other children. It was a wonderful family. Moo and Pa were my war parents, and they were the most wonderful people on earth. They saved my life. Without them, I wouldn't be here today. And they treated me, I think, better than their own, because I was the youngest. I still remember walking with Pa, with his big hands and my little hand in his pocket. And I cannot tell you how wonderful these people are.
History has taught us that in most situations, we have choices. We must remember history. Who are the people you will include in your universe of obligation? It's always the students. They are the ones with the energy, the idealism, and the intellect to make the world that they inherit a better place.
How do you thank someone for saving your life? I don't know how. The only thing that I hope, and now you're going to get me a little upset, but it's that I have led the kind of life that they would have been proud of, things that I've done, the things I've contributed to, the things that I've done for people, because I can never repay what they've done for me, but hopefully I've led the kind of life that they would have been proud that they saved me.
So that was an example of what the students and the teachers would be hearing. And, another interesting thing is what we're hearing is that a lot of times teachers are learning right alongside their students because they don't know a lot about the different topics that we talk about throughout this program. So that's our program. And for those of you that joined us a little bit later, I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that this program is offered to every district across the country at no charge. So that is a key piece that I want to make sure everybody on here knows. And I'm going to open up the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions or thoughts, I'd love to hear them and take the conversation a little further.
Well, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time to show all of this to all of us. I've already spoken with you a couple times, but even still seeing it was really informative, and I was like getting invested and like wanting to see the rest of the video. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with all of us about this awesome program that you're providing across the country and even beyond. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I appreciate it. And if anyone, I'd be happy to email anybody separately if there's anyone who wants to put their email into the chat. My email is in the chat. So if anyone wants to email me about questions or thoughts, it can be a very quick turnaround. We've had districts where we've done these presentations and the next day they say, yes, we want it, and we get them their enrollment keys. And then the next week we do a teacher orientation and the teachers can go ahead and start using it. There's no rules to the program other than it's yours to use whenever you'd like to use it. And we're here for guidance. We're always available to answer questions. Does anybody have any questions? I see somebody put their email in the chat, which is great. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other thoughts on what you all just saw and learned about? No? Okay. Nope. Lisa?
Oh, I was just going to say, I thought it was really great to show an actual example of what would be happening in a classroom. I think that's helpful for people to see.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's why we do what we do, is we want to be able to provide these lessons out across the country and give this gift to all the teachers that are interested in teaching the topic or sharing on the topic.
And I think too, something that really stands out and that you emphasized, but I really got it more in viewing the content, is that it's teaching character and it's teaching empathy and these skills that I feel like have been a very big challenge. I've heard a lot of teachers specifically say, I feel like these kids don't care about things. I feel like they're hard to connect with recently. And so I think that's really, really important. Not only are we learning more about world history, and like you said, it's not necessarily a world history module, it is a character module. So I think that's really impactful.
Absolutely. I'll share that in Florida, the teachers are starting to use this program for the Florida's a resiliency mandate as well. So they're using it for the resiliency mandate as well as the Holocaust genocide mandate. And then, I love hearing tidbits from teachers as I'm going around the conference, to the conferences. And, we've been using this for a few years now in New Jersey and Florida, and they're sharing that it just checks a lot of boxes. Because it also, the poetry dissection, the language arts teachers are loving it for that. The world history teachers, it hits on a lot of different pieces of world history. So it really is very helpful for the teachers. And that's our overarching goal. We're very teacher centric. We want to give teachers what they want. That's why we ask them for their feedback every year. So we can give them what they want and what they need to make this program even better.
Yeah, I think Haley's comment made me think of a question I did have for you. And it does revolve around the notion of the SEL, social emotional learning context. And what I'm curious about is, as you've collected data, do you have data that shows a breakdown of what the educators are using it for specifically? So am I using it in my history course, or am I using it now in my resiliency or my social emotional learning? And I'm just curious as to whether you have data collected on that.
So the data collection that we have is the teachers and the classes that they're teaching and what they're using it in. I can't tell you if they're using it for social emotional learning or if they're using it for mandates for specific education or character development. Because the back end only gives us what we ask, and what we ask is, what do you teach? And then we can see how often they're using it and how much they've used and how many lessons they've used. But I couldn't tell you whether they were using it for SEL or straight up history or anything like that. But we can ask that as a teacher, as part of our teacher survey next year, and see if they'd be willing to answer that. We could add that to our teacher survey for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that data might be valuable in terms of even looking ahead for uh, even National Rural Ed, maybe promoting this to our state affiliates, and then being able to say, hey, look, this has multiple uses. However, what we're finding now is the most effective use is whatever that is, X or Y. And it may vary state to state, but I'm kind of the way Haley was. I got invested in watching the video a little, then thinking about, if I was putting this in a classroom, where would I head with it? For me, the sports background you mentioned about the 1936 Olympics, I mean, that's actually my background is the Olympic sport movement. And so, I've studied that movement from a historical standpoint, but also understanding that we've gone through multiple conflicts in this country or this world since the Olympics have been around since 1904. So we've been through world wars, and we've been through the Holocaust, and we've been through a COVID. So the games have been impacted in different ways for different reasons. So I love the idea that you could use that in a PE class or a health class as well to shift that conversation into whatever you wanted it to be, whether it's sports history or social emotional learning or empathy or whatever it might be. So, well,
Thank you, Dan.
thank you so much. I mean, I know we're a small group today, but this is a mighty group that has lots of tentacles that reach out to lots of folks. And so it's good for us. It's a good learning experience for us now to know this curriculum exists.
Wonderful. Well, that's my goal, is to make as many people aware of this program as possible. And then, you get in front of the right people in the state and they're able to spread it throughout. And that's, again, how we grow in our organic nature that we grow in. We're a small but mighty team also. I have a team of 6 and myself. So we're out there going to all these conferences and doing all the follow-up and really implementing across the country. So we're excited to be connected to y'all and see where we can go in your great state and get some of the districts using this program as well. And it's not something that needs to wait till next year. It can be used whenever they want.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time today.
Of course, my pleasure.
Lee, I did have a question if that's okay.
Of course.
Do you all happen to know or keep track of what the different Holocaust or genocide learning requirements are per state?
So I have not, I mean, I go, a lot of times I'll go and look, but no, I do not. But it's a great thing though. We can do that. It's what what I've learned is most states will say you must teach about the Holocaust and genocide. They don't really go into deep detail like Florida's does. And that's why we say it's such an easy crosswalk. I know that some states say that you have to teach about the indigenous population to that state, which is not what we do. But that doesn't mean it can't be coupled with whatever indigenous genocide might have taken place within a state. Um, but I can though. I can put that. I think that's a great idea, Don, is I can go through and I can pull up, the 26 states that have a mandate and put that in the resource guide so teachers can go in and look and see what the different states are and what the different mandates are.
I mean, this is like a conversation starting point because I was thinking like I don't even know what Illinois is, and if I did, then it helps me reference not only how this could be applicable, but maybe even pushing the conversation like, well, with another state, here's what they're doing, right? Like, what can we learn about advancing this conversation by comparison,
Well, if you give me 1 second.
I actually know what Illinois is. I just looked it
Okay.
up out of curiosity. So we did not mandate and implement a mandate until 24-25. And the requirement is that instruction on the Holocaust and other genocides must be taught in the K-12 curriculum. Mandates starting in the 24-25 school year. Requirement includes a unit on the Holocaust dated 1933 to 45, additional units on other acts of genocide in North America, Cambodia, Rwanda, and so yeah, we're fairly recent adopter to that requirement, which tells me, John, that typical of Illinois, we mandate it with no support. Essentially, you have to do it, but we don't have anything to support you with.
Right.
And I don't know that for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me that our teachers are probably struggling with absolutely nothing to support themselves with.
Yeah.
Correct. And that mandate that you just read, Dave, is um pretty similar to most of the other states. It's very vague and there's no support behind it. Florida didn't have support behind it either. And Florida's had a mandate on the book since 1994. And in 2023, they put together the standards and benchmarks. And it was still an unfunded mandate, and it's still an unfunded mandate, except for now our curriculum is here. So it really is an easy crosswalk because ours are so detailed. And I see a question about economics and business courses that was put in there. So our lesson on corporate complicity is the one that business classes and economics are using, and it really talks about the corporations that were complicit during the Holocaust and what they did and what they provided. So it's an interesting lens to look at, like um, IBM and Coca-Cola and how they did all of the what they provided. Oh God, who is the person who provided the uniforms? I can't think of it off the top of my head now. But it's laid out and it talks about the businesses and what that looked like and what that felt like and what kind of reparations and what they did on the back end to apologize for what they did during the Holocaust. So it's a really interesting lesson, but that's the lesson that's in there for business and economics class. These are great questions.
Yeah, just one footnote. It looks to me like that Illinois actually did its first unfunded mandate on Holocaust education in 1990. So, and didn't do much more until 24-25, which tells me the mandate typically wasn't successful.
Right.
So they had to beef it up.
Other questions?
And by the way, we are the experts in unfunded mandates in Illinois. There are probably 10,237 unfunded mandates from the last 50 years that are still in the books. And we just go, yep, we're supposed to do it, but we didn't do it today. So
it's amazing. Teachers are amazing. I mean, it's just uh, I I I love being able to do this and provide something that teachers are telling me is a gift and that they are really enjoying using with their students. Nothing makes me happier than getting that feedback from teachers across the country. So I'm really hopeful that we can get this into some districts in Illinois. And the two people that put their email address in the chat, I will follow up with you and we can move forward however you would like. And I'm here. You have my email address. It's in there. And I know that Haley's going to be posting this video on your website somewhere. So hopefully, between all of your tentacles, we can get across the rural districts in Illinois.
yeah, we'll do a little brainstorming together. And then Patricia, it's like school. I'm going to call somebody out. Are you on with us from a school in Illinois?
I am. I work for, I'm running my after school program right now. I work for Partners for Rural Impact. So I work on a grant inside of the school. I'm a school coordinator. So I try to align free programs and stuff that I find that I can work in seamlessly with the teacher's curriculum. And we have some Holocaust that's curriculum based. And I was at the Infair conference, I think I'm saying that right, in Salt Lake City.
Yep.
And I was really interested in this because we're planning on a Holocaust art museum in the spring. So I thought that this would be an easy way to work in more of that into the curriculum. Our students are able to do one interview with the Holocaust survivor. And what caught my attention at the conference was the lessons had multiple Holocaust survivors that kind of told the story and went along with the lesson. So I thought our kids could get more information. The thing that stood out to me the most about what I didn't get at the conference was the social emotional aspect of it. That's part of my grant that I try to meet inside the school with objectives. So I really like that part, seeing the measurable outcome that's showing that kids are more apt to stand up for their classmates and not stand by. And I feel like we live in a world where kids have become so desensitized that if we can pull this stuff into the classrooms, it can really make a difference. So yeah, that's.
So I'm pretty confident you're not from Minnesota. So tell me where you're from.
I am from Harlan, Kentucky.
I was going to say Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm from Kentucky.
Okay. Harlan, tell me where Harlan is.
If you know where Lexington is, I'm like about 3 hours from Lexington. We're in a very rural, which is obviously why I was in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
I'm in a very rural area, in a Title I school. So yeah, we could really use this.
Yeah. Which direction from Lexington are you?
South. I'm almost into Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yep.
And also on the border of Virginia. We're over in like the corner.
Oh yeah. So I'm downstate Illinois. I border Missouri, Kentucky, Indiana.
Okay.
I'm
on the complete opposite side of the state. You're close to Paducah. Yeah.
I am. Yep,
I've been to Paducah. Yeah.
Okay. Good deal. Well, I'm glad this is helpful for you. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the social emotional learning component of our schools as well. And then as you talked about after school, looks like the feds are going to release some money on 21st century learning money again this year. And so I'll tell you guys, it's hard for schools to meet the SEL requirement during the school day because there's so many other requirements. So oftentimes, if you can do that in a summer or an after school program, that helps free up that schedule for kids too.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, thanks for being on. Really appreciate it. Glad you were at Infair. I'm sorry we didn't meet, but we were all there as well, wandering around. So,
I loved it. It was a really good conference.
Good deal. Well, guys, I have to run. Thank you so much, Leah, for doing this.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll visit again.
Absolutely. And Haley, if you're going to be the point of contact, or Dave or John, whoever, I'm happy to hop on if there's other districts that you want to connect us to, whatever you want. I'll follow your lead through the state of Illinois.
Haley, I'm thinking a conversation about this is a resource coming in partnership from AIRS and the Holocaust Experience. And we can kind of define what they could use it for, because honestly, the social emotional learning piece of it, every teacher struggles to find curriculum, and this would take care of two mandates in one, actually working through the Holocaust Experience, but in the lens of the SEL. So our team will talk more, and then we'll figure out where we go from here.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
have a great day.
Everyone have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.